1-833-OZEMPIC or visit Ozempic.com to view the medication guide and to learn more about Ozempic. Semaglutide injection 0.5 milligram, 1 milligram, and 2 milligram.
Odyssey Sports Station. Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence coming your way. Welcome. You have found the Sports Bar here from the High Fall Studios in downtown Rochester. My name is Gene Battaglia. Please reach out. Our phone number, 585-866-4326, 585-866-4326. That is the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman Line award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com. Plenty to talk about, and it's one of these shows that just kind of keep us on, and that way you don't have to look at your phone and hit refresh. If you're working in your office, today's a good day. Maybe punch it up there on your phone, and we'll be alongside you. And should there be another Sabre trade, but our show is going to be a little bit different than what you hear on the other fine shows here on WGR Rochester, because the Amherst are not a better team today. I can tell you that. But we understand what the purpose is, right? And we may not like it. I understand if you're upset today. You traded away a better than a point per game player. I have thoughts on that, as Isak Rosane is going to Winnipeg, along with Jacob Bryson and a second round pick for Logan Stanley, Luke Shen, A couple good defensemen. There's another trade with the Rangers that brings in a forward. We'll get to all that. Let's set you up for the show today. As when we have a Sabre trade or something that may impact the Sabres, our fine producer, Tim Schneider, who you can wave to on the camera there, Tim. We're on YouTube and Twitch. He will hit the breaking news sounder.
Ow.
That's...
It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Yes, the button does work.
Just to let you know what it was.
Just let you
No
know.
breaking
Yeah,
news yet.
there's no breaking news yet. But if you're wondering, like, why did they have John Sterling? That's John Sterling getting clocked in the head, and that is Jack from Avon, because we like to do things a little differently here in the sports bar. And you could say, oh, you're a show of inside jokes. Fair. But we always welcome listener suggestions, and some serious sports talk radio shows will have a breaking news sounder with a big voice there, and no, we're having John Sterling getting clocked in the head, and as long as John Sterling is still gracing us here on this planet, we will continue to use that to alert you when we have breaking news. Again, that idea courtesy of Jack from Avon. By the way, end of the show today, or maybe next hour, we will declare our winner. All the entrants are in. Who has the new jingle here to the Sports Bar 2.0? We'll let you know, and that person will always live in glory here in the Sports Bar for their contribution. Our number, 585-866-4326. On the show today, because we're going to have, certainly, Tim will be kind of, monitoring everything when we do have a breaking Sabre note. Certainly one that might impact the Amerks. We'll talk football. And there was a big Bills trade yesterday. And where do the Bills go from here? You would expect this to be a newsy sort of weekend for the Bills. If for nothing else, they've got some work to do still on the cap. And a guy who did put out his suggestions, and one of them came true. Hey, extend Spencer Brown. Yeah, that did happen. Well, there's other things, too, the Bills can do to free up some cap space. We'll talk to Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com and one half of the Shout podcast along with Matt Perino. We will talk to Ryan bottom of this hour. Thad Brown from News 8 coming back into the sports bar. That'll be in the 2 o'clock hour. Again, more Bills talk, wide receivers, and where should the Bills kind of focus their dollars and energy. A lot of people are saying, hey, that defensive side of the ball, but it's kind of a mystery. It's a puzzle. Like what kind of skill set? Who was on this defense before? And part of me is wondering, too, could there actually be someone on this roster right now that the Bills could move? We had the soundbite earlier in the week from Matt Perino who suggested, hey, just look at the evidence with Taron Johnson. Like, wrong side of 30 now, makes money, and coming off a really down year. And you don't know how he would fit exactly into this. So when people are thinking, position change for Taron Johnson, it's like, well, I don't know. Is there anybody else on this Bills roster that maybe Brandon Beane is fielding offers on? I don't think the Bills would move Ed Oliver, but I can't 100% say for sure, because when you think of Ed Oliver now playing defensive end, that's either going to go really, really great or it won't work. I mean, there are just so many things, and we'll ask our experts here coming up in a little bit. Ryan Talbot, Thad Brown joining us here on the show today. Our handle on X, The Fan Rochester. So those are all the ways you can reach us. We are YouTube. We are on Twitch. Now, the fun part of the Sabres.
WGR Rochester. You said The Fan Rochester.
You're kidding.
I promise.
I've got to get better at this. What is the mental block? Maybe if I wrote it out everywhere, don't say this, when for years, not years, decades literally, Joe Capagreco would have they'd come in on Sunday morning and there'd be, Post-it notes from the show on Sunday morning, like all the, just telling what the phone, and maybe that's what I should do. I can't mock Joe Capagreco. I didn't even know I did that, Tim. That's why you're here, to hold me accountable. And maybe there should be a fine jar or something like that.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. Old habits are hard to break. Sabre game last night. That was fun, wasn't it? That was enjoyable. So, and part of the cool thing about sports radio is you lead a busy life. So last night, we get done with the show. I'm getting still used to these new hours. And my son goes to Alfred State. I go down there to pick him up. and it's raining. It's really kind of yuck, and the drive is going actually slower. Elver's not a bad drive at all, but right as we're getting in the car heading on the way back home, it's like, okay, listen to first period, part of the second, on not just on this station, but WCMF, and just to kind of hear the radio-only call last night. That was kind of special, too. Dan Dunleavy, Rob Ray, Paul Hamilton, and again, 5:30 for the next game coming up Saturday against Nashville. Different second period, right? Not one but two shorthanded goals for the Sabres. 5 goals in all for Buffalo in their 5th straight win. Tampa does not get 2 points last night. So, yes, Tampa has games in hand, but it is crazy. It is crazy to look at the standings, and there's Buffalo tied with Tampa atop the division. Like, literally, the Sabres could play 500 hockey from here on out, which I think at this point we would view as a disappointment. If they played 500 hockey, they're getting to 100 points on the season. There are only 20 games left. That's it. This team is going to go over 100 points. I was thinking, what would it be like this to get to 90? Forget 90. My gosh. Yeah, 5-15 down the stretch. Yeah, that would get you to 90, and that would be a major disappointment. This team is rolling. And what was interesting, and Jody Gage is a wise man, right? We had him in the studio last week, Rochester hockey royalty, nickname of Mr. Amherst, right? And he brought up the issue of depth. You know, if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, this is what the Sabres need. They don't need the home run. And I'm looking at these names and like, yeah, these all sound like depth pieces. And look, you could be a real hockey nut and have a really strong opinion about Logan Stanley or Luke Schenn. I personally do not, but I just see the position that they play. And knowing that the strength of the Sabre team really is how the blue line just blossomed offensively. Like Rasmus Dahlin, Bo Byram, Matthias Samuelsson, and now we can say Owen Power. I'm like, hey, there's Owen Power making another play. In fact, 2 last night. Fantastic. That's the strength of this team. And you need to keep those guys fresh. And this stretch is going to be kind of brutal. And
Ow.
Oh, no.
Ow. It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
All right, so just to be clear, that's not a misfire and you're not testing it. We have breaking news in the sports bar.
Not about the Buffalo Sabres, other Bills related.
Okay.
We just mentioned it previously about it being a possibility. It is now official. The Bills are releasing corner Taron Johnson after 8 seasons together.
Wow.
87 starts, All-Pro in 2023.
Wow.
That opens him up to 31 other teams to get just an okay player.
That doesn't count. You said that 2 years ago when he was coming off an all-pro season. You wanted just to get that out there. No one cares when you're right, Tim.
It feels good to be right, though. Nobody cares. That's fine.
I swear, when I was bringing up Taron Johnson, I didn't know it would happen. Wow. Okay. Well, it's something we could ask Ryan Talbot about, and we'll have to figure out, all right, what are the cap savings? Funny. Like, Matt Perito's pretty dialed in. When he brought that up last week with us, it was actually not last week. It was on Tuesday. Like, my goodness. Didn't think that was something that would be possible, but Matt Perino in the Sports Bar, you can hear him every Tuesday here on the Sports Leader. Our number 866-4326, 866-4326, as Taron Johnson no longer a Buffalo Bill. So, again, thank you, Tim, for breaking. That would qualify as breaking news.
Good.
Okay. Everybody, Tim Schneider. And we will have Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Take of the Day. That'll be coming up. And I don't know what he's going to say, and we're betting. I think we're doing okay on it so far.
I think we're about 600.
Yeah.
Do you want Perino from last week about this?
Yeah. Do we have? This is Matt Perino from Tuesday talking about what he thought was a real possibility that just happened. The Bills moving off of Taron Johnson.
I'm probably closest on Taryn to saying that he's probably not going to be back in some way, shape, or form. I mean, a post-June 1st cut, it gives you a lot of relief. And the issue that I think I have with the Taryn vision here is the idea of him playing safety in Jim Leonard's defense is a major projection. I think the strength of bringing in a guy like Jim Leonard who has connections that run deep in college football is that you're going to have the ability to maybe draft your defensive backfield over the next 2 years. Taron Johnson has played great football here for a long time, but he wasn't the same player last year. Like when he was on the field, there was a little bit of regression.
Okay. There's Matt Perino ahead of the curve on Tuesday, and we did the math right after that. If you make it post June 1st, that would save the Buffalo Bills $6.1 million for this year's cap. I think the June 1st thing is so silly, isn't it? Like, whatever. Like, okay, we're going to allocate it, half of it next year's cap. You know, like, just do that now, and you don't have to worry about it. So, just the NFL and their own little silly rules, right, when it comes to the salary cap. Yeah, if I'm the Players Association, I'm getting rid of stuff like that. But it's a cruel business. It really is. Because depth-wise, if Taron Johnson wasn't a starter, that's a guy you would want around. And I should throw out this disclaimer. We've seen other Buffalo Bills come back before, right? But was that McDermott? Was it Bean? I don't know. But Taron Johnson is now going to be an unrestricted free agent. So that's a little bit of a surprise. 866-4326. Ryan Talbot coming up at the bottom of this hour. Back to the Sabres. But again, I promised you the Amherst standpoint. And for the Amherst, this is the tough part. They're not a better team today. And on top of Rosane getting dealt away, you have these rumors that, again, if we're bracing for something, we're bracing for Devin Levi. And for Devin Levi, I go back to the podcasts that the Enforcers had in Buffalo. And they reported that Devin Levi had asked for a trade. And when we reached out to people around here, we didn't get the confirmation, but we didn't get a denial. So to me, that's okay. Maybe that happened. Devin Levi came into this league with high expectations off the Reinhardt deal at a time where Sabre fans were feeling pretty crappy about their organization. But it was spring, and for once you had meaningful games in March, and it fell short, but it was fun. And that was the last year of Generette. And, hey, Devin Levi would give you some promise heading into next season. Except development for a goaltender is not linear. Devin Levi struggled that season and eventually came back down to Rochester and helped out in the playoffs. And here he is, still in Rochester. Now, with the heaviest workload in the American Hockey League, he has started the most games. And if you're a team in the NHL that's like, where could we find perhaps our goaltender of the future? A rumor going on, and there are so many rumors, and you don't know how this stuff gets started. But I would expect that the Sabres are taking calls. And one rumor is that Philadelphia is interested in Devin Levi. If the Sabres make a trade that involves Devin Levi, it cannot be for depth pieces. That's why I don't think it makes any sense. Anybody watch the Sabres this year? It's not like you need a top 6 forward. You don't need a top 4 defenseman. Like, depth seems to be where it's at. You're not trading Devin Levi for depth. I'm sorry. If anything, what would happen if you had a goaltender injury? Well, okay, you got the guy, Colton Chaos, they call him. Well, okay, that's great. Devin Levi here in Rochester? That was the hope for me this spring. Like, let's see what this kid can do. Because to me, Devin Levi last spring, number one reason why they beat Syracuse. It's like, okay, Syracuse played well. You lost. But then there's a 13-day layoff. 13 days in between rounds. That is a momentum killer. And then you're facing Laval, and Laval's really good. So, as we know. So, keeping an eye on the Devin Levi rumors. But as far as Isak Rosane, yeah, you would no secret why Winnipeg would ask for him. Right winger, 45 points this year, more than a point per game for the Amherst, and he's only 22 years old. But it's something that former Amherst head coach Seth Appert kind of stuck in my mind here, because we were talking to Seth Appert about kind of his history, because talk about not a linear path. Seth Appert, head coach in college at RPI, gets fired, but finds a pretty good job, although maybe some people wouldn't think. No, being the head coach of the U.S. developmental team, you're learning a lot, and you're seeing the next generation of talent that's coming up. But you got to whip these kids into shape. And literally, they are kids. They're under 18. They're not legal. So what Appert told us was that when these kids come into the U.S. team, while playing junior and everything else, they're always on the top power play unit. They're always on the top line. They all think they're going to be the goal scorer, by and large. Of course, it's not true for everybody, but that's where the educational part of the game comes in. Like, no, teams need third and fourth liners. You got to go into the corners. You got to do other stuff. When you get to the NHL, most teams have their top line center. They have their goal scorers. You get drafted by Pittsburgh. Yeah, Sidney Crosby's been there for more than 2 decades. Actually, yeah, I think that would be an accurate statement. More than 2 decades. Now I'm thinking about the math. But the point is, like, you got to figure out other ways to grow your game. And for Rosane, there was, to me, yes, you saw flashes, but there was never a point where, oh my gosh, this guy does not belong here. I enjoy him while you can. Kulik last year, I had that feeling. And then Kulik goes up to the Sabres, and because he still had eligibility, he's on the clear day roster, and Kulik comes down. That was fun. And, well, you know, you can't see Kulik again. And by the way, he's not healthy right now with a blood clot. But for Zane, we went into this camp thinking, all right, this is your last chance. And this is, again, more cruelty in the business. Talking about Taron Johnson being released by the Bills today, age 30. Like, you're a 22-year-old, and the team deals you away. I think it's just a time and place issue with Isak Rosane. Meaning, this is a Sabre team that the goal is not to make the postseason. You've already done that, right? The goal is to actually go win the whole damn thing. And you need some other players here. And these 2 defensemen will, you know, kind of work their way into the rotation that you got from Winnipeg. And it's a win for Winnipeg because, well, you know, they're going to get somebody that maybe can come into a top 6 forward. Isak Rosane was not going to be a top 6 forward in this league. And Isak Rosane's game is not that bottom 6 forward kind of Benson going into the corner and, you know, John with somebody, or Peyton Krebs throwing his body around. That's not Rosane either. So for Isak Rosane, I hope he flourishes out in Winnipeg. And we could say, yeah, that was the guy we were hoping for. It's just that, you know, the timeline here just kind of didn't allow for it to happen. Jacob Bryson also goes in the deal, and I think Jacob Bryson, I view him as an overachiever coming out of Providence. I'm biased toward college players, and I thought he's done a nice job, but at times he just looked outmatched. So to me, that's kind of just a throw-in because you need just to clear a way for Stanley and Shen, and Winnipeg needs a body. Draft picks, I don't care at this point. Like, this is the fun part. Like, you know, if the Jarmo Kekalainen wants to make another move today, yeah, give up another draft pick. Whatever at this point. You're Brian Duff last hour. Like, yeah, if the Sabres move off their first-round pick this year, I don't care. As long as it gets us to where we're all hoping for. So we'll keep an eye on the trade deadline for sure. There was another angle last night, and this was a more common thing in the sport of hockey. Like, goonish sort of play. That's how we would describe Evgeny Malkin's slash to the neck last night of Rasmus Dahlin. Like, there's no place for that. Now, I guess we're kind of learning that maybe Dahlin likes to get under players' skin, and that's fantastic. And Malkin is a guy that can lose it from time to time, but that's pretty bad. That's going to be suspension worthy. To the point where if you're watching last night's game, and this is my criticism of ESPN, is that, hey, coming up, we're going to have, and I guess Boston is still in the mix, and certainly Pittsburgh is a playoff team, but I don't need to see the Rangers at this point or the Devils. But they're always going to lean toward the big markets. But no, I want to see the best teams. But they're running a promo this weekend for Boston and Pittsburgh, and they're putting up the headshot of me getting Malkin. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if Malkin's going to be on the ice. I mean, that's suspension worthy in my opinion. And actually, that flipped the game. When the Sabres get the major time and they score on the power play, and then they get more time. And yes, Pittsburgh comes back there and they draw a penalty themselves. But, yeah, that set the pace there, in my opinion, and flipped the game for Buffalo. Buffalo going to be back in action coming up on Sunday, 5:30. Amerks tonight in Laval. It's going to be Don Stevens on the call. Damn, I should look this up.
Likely his last trip up there.
Okay, yeah. So this is the last week for the Amerks. There are only 20 games left.
Yep.
I'd have to think this is the last trip to Laval. Wow, in the regular season. I'd like to go back up there for the postseason, but
that would be nice.
But okay, so this is the last trip to Laval?
This is the last regular season trip. There's a chance they see them out there in late April.
Yeah, so this is look, I think that I was very impressed how the Utica fans they acknowledged Don, and I don't have any doubt that and good for Don too that he wants to take these assignments, and also good for Andrew Mossbrooks because he's kind of the voice in waiting, and it can kind of be a tricky thing, but you want to give Don every opportunity here, and I had this kind of dream that look, we've seen the Amerks make these runs before in recent years. And, could Don be giving us one last playoff run for the Rochester Americans? Yeah, the reality is that the Amerks are not a better team today with Isak Rosén not on the team. And if you're thinking, well, you're getting Logan Stanley and Luke Shen, and maybe this will force some other player down to Rochester, that's not necessarily true. And again, this is one of those hockey rules that after the trade deadline, you can house more players up in Buffalo. So you can't have that expectation that somebody would get squeezed down. Maybe they would, from just kind of the standpoint of, okay, you're not dressing up here in Buffalo, go skate a few games here in Rochester. Notice I say Rochester. They say The Rock or Roch. I hate that.
That's a sports thing, I
guess. No, it's not a sports thing. It's a Buffalo hockey thing on Go to Roch. No, we don't say that here. We call ourselves the Flower City. We call ourselves Rochester. Back in the 80s, there was a marketing campaign, the World's Image Center. Okay, that didn't stick too. That's how old I am. Let's get to Ryan Talbot. Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com, Syracuse.com, Shop Podcast. We'll get his thoughts here on the breaking news today that Taron Johnson is no longer a Buffalo Bill. By my math, that saves a little over $6 million, but we'll get Ryan's thoughts on this. And also, Thad Brown will be coming up next hour. 866-4326. Never again will I screw this up. You are listening to Rochester's sports leader, WGR Rochester.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
Got some breaking Bills news as to various reports. The Bills releasing Taron Johnson. The move would save an estimated $6 million if designated as a June 1st cut. Also, the Bills will apparently release wide receiver Curtis Samuel. We'll get the thoughts of Ryan Talbot from the Shout podcast, Syracuse.com, NewYorkState.com, Upstate.com. Will join us next year on the Sports Bar. Isak Rosane no longer with the Rochester Americans. He's part of that deal with the Winnipeg Jets. Brian Duff says this is an opportunity for Rosane.
There's only so much you can do when you're in the American Hockey League. And Rosane came up and had some more opportunity as far as minutes and role this year with the Sabres, and I think showed well and certainly got in games. But Winnipeg needs more scorers in their stable here. That's the viewpoint from here. So this makes perfect sense why they would target Rosane.
Amerks tonight play in Laval. Our coverage begins at 7. Gene Battaglia, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
He has been with us since day one of the birth of local sports talk on these frequencies. In fact, I remember when and where I was when I met Ryan Talbot from NewYorkUpstate.com. He came in to help a draft show with us, and we reacted in real time to the Bills moving up to trade Sammy Watkins for Sammy Watkins and make that draft, and that did not work out. Ryan Talbot joining us on the phone today, and Ryan, appreciate the time. And again, some breaking news here this hour as you had you laid out a plan for the Buffalo Bills to to get underneath the cap, and certainly I don't think the Curtis Samuel getting released is a surprise. Your reaction here to the Bills apparently moving off of Taron Johnson?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's part of the business. It's part of the Bills making a change to a new defensive scheme under Jim Leonard. And, Jim Leonard talked about hearing from Taron Johnson, talking with him, talking about the excitement of the new scheme, but realistically, Taron Johnson just didn't fit into what Jim Leonard is going to try to do. There was talk about maybe converting him to safety, but let's be honest, that just doesn't make much sense. Taron Johnson in his prime was one of the best, if not the best nickel cornerback in this league. But he's struggled in the last few years. Durability has been an issue. He plays a very physical style of football for being undersized, and the coverage skills started to deteriorate as well. So when you factor all of that in, it just made sense for the Bills to move on, let him try to find a new home where the defensive scheme lets him play to his strengths. Yeah,
and he will always have a place in Bills fans' hearts for that unbelievable pick six in the playoff win over the Ravens. Ryan, when we're looking at the secondary, and again, I don't know what Tre'Davious White's plan is here. I'm sure he would love to come back, but I don't know if he fits this new scheme. I don't know who's going to be playing alongside Cole Bishop. There are a lot of opportunities. Just kind of knowing that you're going to need just talent on that side of the ball. Should we expect the majority of dollars, whatever the Bills have this offseason, to be spent on the defensive side of the ball?
I think you're going to see a lot of the free agent money going to the defensive side of the ball. I wouldn't be shocked if they added one more wide receiver in the second or third wave of free agency. But, yeah, you want to go out there. You want to get one or two linebackers, especially some that might have some familiarity with Jim Leonard's scheme. There's going to be some pretty good safeties available in free agency that I think can be had on the cheap or a less expensive deal, because this draft class is absolutely loaded at safety. So I think the Bills could get a good value at that position as well. And then obviously they really want to be able to find someone that can get after the quarterback. Maybe that's where they spend a big chunk of whatever remaining change they have left in free agency, try to take one swing on that side of the ball. But, yeah, I do think that the defense side of the ball is where you're going to see the majority of their free agent dollars spent.
Ryan, I think if I had to say what was kind of the consensus reaction to the Moore trade yesterday, because the way it was kind of revealed to us originally was like, hey, the Bills are trading for DJ Moore, and it's a mid-round pick. I'm like, okay, that's somebody that, they're going to have to work, to do some cap stuff, which they ended up doing. But to give up the second-round pick knowing that you have these other areas, Ryan, your takeaway from the Moore trade that will become official coming up this Wednesday?
Yeah, I think I had the unpopular opinion. I was all for it. I think that it was a great trade for the Bills. A second-round pick for Buffalo. You look at it, and Brandon Beane's had some hits. He had James Cook. He's had Osiris Torrance, but he's also had Boogie Basham as a second-round pick. The draft, simply put, is a crapshoot. And what we learned last night, NFL insider James Palmer said the Seahawks were in on DJ Moore as well as a few other teams. And it could be that Seattle kind of was trying to win this battle or bidding war, and they said, we'll give our second-round pick late in the second round, obviously, after winning the Super Bowl, and maybe that's why the Bills had to move from maybe a third-round pick up to a second-round pick. They're getting a fifth in return. It essentially works out to be pick number 64 in the NFL draft, which I get it. That's still a second-round pick, but that's as close to a third-rounder as possible, and I think that when you really sit back and look at DJ Moore's game, what he's going to bring to this offense, it's going to be worth that and more at the end of the day.
Also, I think, and would you say it's fair to kind of deduce that where all of a sudden the NFL wants us to think that, hey, they don't start negotiating until Monday? No. I think this was all happening last week. Do you think, is it fair to say that Brandon Beane already kind of knew what the market would be, say for an Alec Pierce or Mike Evans, and the asking price actually might actually shock some people here when we hear the numbers wherever they land here coming up next week?
Yeah, 100%. People talk at the combine, numbers kind of get out there in terms of what players are looking for, and if there's a market for those players, there's a good chance they're going to get it. There was a time where we were talking about Mike Evans, for instance, being at 12 or 13, and now I'm reading articles where he might get 20 on average. And if I shame on any team that does that for an older player. I still think he's good, but if Brandon Beane's sitting there and saying, "Oh, a 33-year-old player is going for that kind of money, what if I make a trade for DJ Moore?" And I get it; it's a lot of money, $70+ million over 3 years. But with the way the cap space is, or the cap's going up every single year, they're knocking down his cap hit number this year to $6.75 million. Which is going to pretty much swap out what Curtis Samuel is going to be when they move on from him officially next week. So it all works out in the end, and I think that the Bills are going to really find that deal more digestible than what some of these guys get on the open market.
Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, the Shout podcast with Matt Perino. And to kind of back up here, I thought you had a really nice article, a few weeks ago talking about the ways the Buffalo Bills could, save some money here when it comes to cap. And one of those came to fruition. That was the Spencer Brown extension. If we can kind of revisit that, Ryan, because I'm anticipating this being a newsy sort of weekend. What are some other things here that the Bills could do to free up some more cap space before we get to Monday?
Yeah, the easiest lever is going to be reworking Josh Allen's deal. That opens up $10 to $12 million. You can cut Taylor Rapp, who I don't think is going to come back to this regime and play safety. That saves over $3 million. You could move on from Tyler Bass, although Brandon Beane has been on the record saying they anticipate him being the kicker. That's another $3 million there. You could entertain extending Deion Dawkins once more, add a few more years onto his deal, and that would significantly lower his cap hit. So those are just some of the levers that you can push. That's the beauty of the NFL. There's always these different ways that you can create enough cap space to get underneath the threshold without really having to destroy your team in terms of what it looked like. I mean, we've been talking about the Saints, for instance, at one point in time having to blow everything up, and they haven't been good as of late, but it never really came to that fruition where you can always manipulate the cap, and the Bills can do that too to get under it here in the next few days, which, like you said, there's already moves happening today. I anticipate there being a few more. Yeah,
we're talking to Ryan Talbot here. Ryan, just a straightforward question. If you had to predict, who is the starting center for the Buffalo Bills week 1 this coming season?
I think it's Cedric Van Pran Granger. They are apparently very high on him within the building. It's funny, when Joe Brady was introduced as the head coach, or maybe it was when Pete Carmichael was introduced. So now I'm blanking. It's been a few weeks.
It was him, the head. Yeah, Van Pran Granger is actually working out there, right?
He's working out in the background, putting in that work. And listen, I get it. You can't pay everyone. That's the nature of the beast in the NFL. You want to. You'd like to keep as many players as you can. But we're a few years removed from the Bills spending a day 3 pick on Van Pran Granger, who had a ton of playing experience at Georgia and played very well. He had some injuries as a rookie. But I think they feel like at this point in his career, he's ready to take over that role. You have Alec Anderson, who could play there as well. He has the versatility to play center and guard. And knowing Brandon Bean, I'm sure he'll also bring in a cheap veteran. They always bring in a few guys late in free agency, vet minimum type players to compete as well. But they want Van Pran Granger, in my opinion, to win that job.
Yeah, Edwards, is that going to be too? We all kind of like, okay, Connor McGovern, that's going to sting. Because, and I think we understand, he's going to get paid by somebody. He was kind of the vibes guy. Last year, the vibes guy, to me, walked out and gosh, he had a good season there for New England there in that wide receiver. But, yeah, like as far as Edwards, like does he come back at the left guard position, Ryan?
I think there's actually more hope there now than maybe we were anticipating a week or two ago. And Aaron Cromer had a really good interview with Eric Wood, and he talked about Edwards and how smart he was, smartest player he ever had, he said. And he was calling things out for the Bills the last 2 years in that starting role and the importance of his role. And then at the Combine, too, Matt's talked about the fact that people don't anticipate David Edwards getting that $18 to $20 million dollar contract that has kind of been the average that's been floated out there. They think he's going to sign anywhere from 12 to 15 million. And I think the Bills could maneuver that and manage that, knowing the importance that he's had to this offensive line. I think that he is by far more realistic than Connor McGovern at this point, which is funny because a week or two ago, I would have said the exact opposite.
So just kind of an update here because apparently Taron Johnson's not going to be post June 1st. That's kind of. Do you find that surprising there, Ryan? Because if you did that, you would free up more money. But then again, if you're looking long term, they're probably looking at all the angles here. I just thought that, they're just looking to bite the bullet here all at once here with Taron Johnson apparently.
Which I do get to a certain extent because you look at what they've done the last few years with some of these contracts and adding the extra years on to players' salaries where you're still paying for them a few years down the road after they've already been off the team with the dead cap and things like that. Maybe they do have to swallow their medicine, so to speak, for a few players here and there. And with Taron Johnson, I guess that makes sense because you don't want to keep kicking everyone down the road or kicking the can because it will eventually catch up to you to a certain extent. Again, not that the Bills would ever have to blow everything up and start all over, but the more you kick these salaries down the road, the more it ends up hurting you when it comes to trying to take some big swings like the Bills would love to do, I'm sure, year in and year out.
Yeah, so according to Andy Young and others, that it saves the Bills $1.9 million. That's it. So this is more of a football sort of move, and the Bills will just take their medicine now on Taron Johnson as we're reacting to news in real time with Ryan Talbot from the Shout podcast. And Ryan, going back to the wide receivers, and this is always kind of the topic here, and if you're looking at how we're going to improve this offense here in Buffalo, boy, now that you see all these holes on defense there, it would be really, really fun to take the best defensive player available at pick 26, or do you go, what would help in that regard is if you would be able to sign another wide receiver here coming up in free agency. Ryan, I don't know if the Bills can afford a big ticket guy like you mentioned, Mike Evans or Alec Pierce, but is there another player that might fit the bill there, so to speak, assuming that you still have Keon Coleman and assuming that certainly you will have Josh Palmer still in the mix?
Yeah, I think Jalen Naylor is a name to watch out of Minnesota. It depends on what his market ends up looking like, but I don't think he's going to command a huge contract. And you look at what he's done at times where he's been the second or third option there, depending on injuries, suspensions, et cetera, in Minnesota. I like the talent that he has and he brings. Darnell Mooney was just released in Atlanta. He is another player that's better than expected. When you look at the numbers, I don't think people think of Darnell Mooney as this difference maker, and he's not a number one or a number two receiver, but he can be a solid number three or number four for this team. And I think what they've already done with DJ Moore really helps when people really start to look at what he's done. He's going to already help out Khalil Shakir and help out Joshua Palmer, and the list goes on because this is a big play threat, a guy that's one of five players with 50-plus catches on throws of 20-plus air yards. He's in a group with CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, George Pickens, and Tyreek Hill. So you throw him into the mix, then you can go out in the second or third wave and add a Mooney or add a Naylor. And then I think the Bills are going to be in a good spot where you can go BPA at pick number 26. It doesn't completely eliminate them from going Concepcion or Omar Cooper Jr., but I think more realistically, it allows you to attack safety position where I think there could be some stud safety still at pick 26 or even up front at defensive tackle or off the edge.
You said the magic name, and now my eyes are just kind of getting all dreamy, thinking of the guy from the 585 and KC Concepcion. Ryan, we need to figure out a way to get KC Concepcion to the Bills at pick number 26.
Well, from what I've been told, there has been a lot of mutual interest. No top 30 visits scheduled yet, but that could obviously change. So I think that the Bills, if he is their top player on the board at 26, he'll certainly be in play.
Ryan, tell us about the Shout podcast schedule here, because all of a sudden it feels like we're back in football season here coming up this weekend.
Yeah, here's the beauty of it. There is no schedule in terms of when it's going to be based on the news that breaks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do a pod today, another one tomorrow, obviously one on Monday when the legal tampering window begins. It does feel like football season where we can't just sit here and say, we'll do Wednesday, we'll do this day. Whenever the news breaks, that's when we're going to go live. So expect a lot of Shout podcasts.
Fantastic. Ryan, thank you for taking time out of your day and sharing your thoughts here, and we'll be checking out the pod. Thanks so much, bud.
You got it.
Thanks, Ryan Talbot, longtime friend of the show. And again, if there is a great Bills pod, I'm happy to promote it, and that is one of the best, the job that he and Matt do here. All right, you're making that Taron Johnson move, and you're biting the bullet right now on that, and not doing the June 1st thing. Like, I guess you're trying to make sure you're not in complete cap jail in 2 years from now by not taking the bullet on everything. It also might tell me that the Bills are up to other things, like when it comes to, and as he mentioned, a Josh Allen restructure, that seems pretty simple. We've had Taylor Rapp on the show, and I always got to qualify this, right? These are men with families, right? And they are just not transactional pieces of Bitcoin. Sometimes it comes across that way. So when we're talking about these guys and their families and, I'm so glad they cut Curtis Samuel. It's a cruel business, and these men know what they're getting into when they sign up to be football players. That's the disclaimer I'm throwing out, that the Bills would be good to kind of move off of Taylor Rapp and save that money too. We will have terrible time Timmy's terrible take of the day. Again, the new bit here on the show. I have no idea what he's going to say. Sometimes it might spark a thought, and other times I'll just get angry. I don't know what to expect there. We'll have time for your calls, too, on the other side. Thad Brown from News 8 will react to this breaking Bills news. Hey, we got an NHL trade deadline coming up at 3 o'clock, too. 866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
57 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
So the Bills news today, Taron Johnson cut this hour, and it's not June 1st designated, so the Bills are going to eat over $9 million in dead cap. It saves just $1.9 million against this year's cap, which means, okay, you need to do more. What's next? What's next is Curtis Samuel was released. Okay, that's not a surprise. We will talk more with Thad Brown, Bills related. That is coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. Always time for your calls here on WGR Rochester at 866-4326. 866-4326. You know, sometime we're gonna have a new customized open because I think this might stay.
All right.
And it's time for terrible takes, Timmy's terrible take of the day.
So I know that a lot of Rochester fans have some feelings about these Sabres trades the last couple days, and let me tell you why your feelings should be the same as mine. These trades, while not sexy for the Buffalo Sabres, were necessary. Isak Rosén, in the Sabres terms, is probably just the same as Victor Olofsson. Fine player, decent role in the NHL, was never going to work in Buffalo. He was awesome in Rochester. Do not get me wrong, it really hurts that team. But I think that we can maybe concede that the Amerks Calder Cup run far less likely than a Sabres Stanley Cup run, which I said already this week. They're winning the Stanley Cup.
All right, well, that's not a bold take. But
they didn't need to make the bold splash with those Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko moves that did not work out. These trades are the ones that the Sabres needed to make to fortify their roster and get them to where they have not been in ages.
Well, I don't think even with Rosén on the roster here in Rochester, this team was going to go very far in the postseason. I think that things are stacked against them, namely the standings, where you got to play a play-in game potentially against the Marlies. That's not ideal. And then go to Laval. It's just this simple. Like, Rosén is not going to be a top 6 forward in Buffalo. And if he were to be, how long do you keep him in Rochester? Again, it's a timing issue. This is really, if the Sabres were out of it like they've been, you're not making this trade, of course. So it's not surprising, but the hope is that we get to 3:01 p.m. Actually, technically, you could still learn about the trade after 3 o'clock. We get past the deadline this afternoon, and Devin Levi is still here in Rochester. I know Devin Levi would probably welcome a trade. Who wouldn't? Would you rather play in the NHL or in Rochester? That's not even a question, right? But for our stake, I'm selfish, Tim, and I think Emmerich fans, I do not like. I understand, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. That we are here to serve you, oh great master, yes, parent club, yay.
We want our cake.
You know, that's it. Like right. I want everything. And it can be done. Hell, like you had Tampa winning a Stanley Cup, and I don't know if Syracuse actually won the damn thing in 1 year, but yeah, like it can be done. There's been other organizations.
Both teams can be good at the same time.
Yeah. Carolina, you can make. So to me, it just feels like and part of it too is the schedule. Like, this is not an easy schedule for the Amerks. 2 games up in Laval. 6 of the last 7 are on the road. 6 of the last 7 on the road. What the hell is in town? The circus? What are we doing? Do they still have the circus? I don't even know, but, like, wait a second. Who put that schedule together? It would be brutal. And at this point, I guess I would be happy with, okay, did we actually get to the 1-4 matchup or 1-5 matchup and go to Laval? That's what it kind of feels like right now. Well, thank you, Tim. The Sabre trade today was certainly the big headline from last night, and we're keeping an eye on everything for sure. I guess news on the NFL today: Rashawn Gary is being released by the Packers. That'll clear $11 million in space for them. Huh. You're gonna get paid. Like, everybody's like, hey, would you like him in Buffalo? Yes. But is that the guy you want to invest in? Here's what I come down on it. All right. I want to put the rest of the wide receiver talk once and for all. Like, let Jim Leonard work with younger kids and develop the younger kids as we kind of come along and find some bargain basement guys. You have enough pieces on this defense. I like, to me, if I had to have my wish, all right, the cap space. Okay, if Mike Edmonds wants 2 years, $40 million, oh my gosh, you can't do that. Why not? Why not? Like that to me, if you can get, and you don't have to worry, like Ryan Talbot, BPA. We should just kind of abbreviate now because that's become such a cliche, but it's true. Best player available. You go BPA at 26. And yes, I would love to have Casey Concepcion, but hey, Tim, the reality is at BPA, it's every time I say that name, that music's going to play now.
Yeah, I don't even think I have to press it. It just plays on its own now.
It's like an AI thing as soon as like BPA. Like that's my wish now. Like when we get to Monday and doing the show Monday, oh my gosh, the Bills got another receiver. And here's the room. It's DJ Moore. It's this receiver X, Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman's still on the roster, and maybe he'll be active, maybe not, and you still have Josh Palmer kicking around. There you go. Voila. Part of me thinks that's not going to happen, but it's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a great weekend. Monday's going to be a lot of fun. We've got Emirates hockey tonight, as it will be the team playing without Isak Rosén. Don Stevens will be on the call tonight as the team is up in Laval. 866-4326. Hour number 2 we roll into here on WGR Rochester.
You're in the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia.
Spring is right around the corner. Look at the temperature tomorrow, right? 70 degrees here in Rochester. We bet you're excited for warmer weather. But as the temperatures rise, make sure that your energy bills don't. Keeping those cooling costs low with Window Nation's high-quality, energy-efficient products. Simply request a consultation where their experts will visit your home, spot problem areas, and make recommendations. Your customized windows can be installed in a day, and once completed, your home will be shielded from outside hot air while you remain cool and comfortable inside throughout the spring and summer. With Window Nation, your house won't just look great, but you'll also have peace of mind. All of Window Nation's products are backed by a lifetime warranty. There's no better time to upgrade your home right now with Window Nation. In March, the more you buy, the more savings you could enjoy. Up to 50% off all window styles. Be sure to ask about Window Nation's generous financing options, including $0 down and payments as little as $199 a month. Visit windownation.com for your free consultation today. That's windownation.com.
Mac salad, hot
Rochester and everywhere you go at WGR Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
The Bills making a couple moves today. They're going to release Taron Johnson. The move will not come with the June 1st designation, so the Bills will only save $1.9 million against this year's cap. Johnson, 2023 All-Pro. He's going to be 30 this coming season. Also released by the Buffalo Bills coming up, it'll be Curtis Samuel. Thad Brown from News 8 will join us coming up later this hour. The Rochester Americans on our airwaves tonight. It's the first of two as the team playing in Laval. Isak Rosén no longer in Amherst. He was dealt away to Winnipeg last night. The NHL trade deadline coming up at 3 o'clock. RIT playing game one of the best of three at Holy Cross. All these games out in central Massachusetts coming up this weekend. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
I love how that, if you listen really closely to that open, it's like a cork popping, and whatever your beverage of choice as we welcome you in. As some people ask me, is that a real thing, the box wine? I'm like, well, you be the judge. I mean, I've laid it out for you before. Like, box wine has the value. It has the taste, the quality. And then nobody can judge you on the pitch count, if you know what I'm saying. But there's no sound effect for that. That's like, they're like, what, are you ripping into the box and pulling it out? It's not very, the cork popping. That's, that gives you the imagery of the sports bar. As we'll talk about this on a Friday. A newsy Friday, right? Here, we're kind of gearing up. All right, what else are the Sabres doing? We're looking around. Nothing yet. So we had the trades last night, and we'll review that. But we have the rumor today that Devin Levi is on the block. So far, nothing. And if we get to the end of this afternoon, because the official deadline's at 3 o'clock, sometimes, just like the NFL, you may not hear it right at 3 o'clock, but it still might happen. So, and we haven't heard any kind of, hey, we're done here. Sometimes you'll get that from the Bills and from other teams, and no, we haven't heard anything close to that from Jarmo Kekalainen. So we are winding down. In fact, today, by and large, it's been kind of slow, I guess, other than the rumor mill here. Yeah,
it was exciting last night, mostly because the Sabres were involved, but there hasn't been anything juicy yet today.
Yeah, that's
usually how it goes.
That's how it goes. Yeah, it's not the NFL trade deadline. Look, when we first started this show, it was a 0, it was a nothing, and now it's turned into something, even to the point where teams want to get a head start on this, recognizing, hey, this is a chance to reshape for the cap and plan for the next year's draft. The Bills doing a little planning today, and you heard in the update. I'm a little surprised. So the Bills have surprised me twice in 2 days. I'm surprised today that Taron Johnson doesn't get the June 1st designation. If they gave him the June 1st designation, that would have saved the Bills $6.1 million. Instead, it's only going to be $1.9 million against this series cap. So essentially, they're eating all the dead cap now, which is a little over $9 million, which is not ideal for the Buffalo Bills. They're essentially eating the cap, which is a little over $9 million, which is not ideal for the Bills.
9 times.
That's a lot more. That's not. I hear the number, but it's not. It didn't register. The same to me. Like,
no. $9 million doesn't. Like, of course, not millions of dollars wouldn't register with you, Tim. Not me,
never will.
Never will. So Taron Johnson. It's not surprising from the standpoint, and Matt Perino tipped us off like, hey, his spot on the roster is in trouble here, and he laid it all out. And number one on the list, he's 30, and it's a new defensive scheme. And Taron Johnson forever will be remembered fondly by Buffalo Bills fans for that pick six in the Ravens game. He's had other great plays, but this year wasn't up to par. And I don't know how that how it would fit in next year's scheme, but it's just another player that you're going to have to replace in the 53, right? The other surprise, well, it was yesterday. We heard the compensation. Like, wait a second. You're doing the Bears a favor by taking all this money off of their books, and you're going to give them a second-round pick? Well, a couple thoughts. One, well, when the Bills got a second-round pick for Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs was on an expiring contract, like I thought that that Brandon Beane fleeced the Texans, and for the Texans, was that really worth the investment? But the reason they did it, they were kind of on the doorstep, and we want to show with our young quarterback that we're ready to take that step. Diggs blows out his knee, and gosh, you could say that offense has gone completely south, where the defense has become the image, what people recognize that Texans team for. But the point is about a second-round pick for DJ Moore. Like, wow. All right, well, that's not ideal. But you heard Ryan Talbot last hour say, no, I have the unpopular opinion. Who cares? We're getting a known commodity for a second-round pick. Yes, sign me up. You know who else had that take yesterday? It was Michael F. Florio.
I like the trade, and I immediately got excited. And the thing is, that gets me excited about someone like DJ Moore is, for one, he has experience with Joe Brady in this system. He had his best 2-year stretch as a pro wide receiver with Joe Brady back in Carolina. But obviously there's chemistry there. There's trust there with Joe Brady. But I also think it's a good fit because DJ Moore is the best separator now on the Buffalo Bills. He is the best downfield option on the Buffalo Bills. He's extremely hard to tackle after the catch, which we know fits right in with Joe Brady and what the Bills have been doing the last few years. But on top of that, he is extremely versatile.
Yeah, he's laying it out there. It's just that wasn't on our whiteboard, I think. That was kind of it. Like, we were all expecting Alec Pierce or Mike Evans. I know he's not exactly a character guy, but I think he could be a true number one in Jordan Addison if the Vikings are willing to move him off for a mid-round pick or something, and then if he proves to be a problem, then get rid of him. Like, you're going to have to take some chances like that if you want to get over the top. It's kind of unsavory to say it like that, but Greg writing in. This goes back to last hour. You can always reach us on X, our handle, WGR Rochester, which I said completely wrong last hour, which I suggested, all right, now we're at the point where this isn't cute anymore. Then I got to get a call for management or whatever. And by management, I'm gonna if it's danger, I'm just gonna be not taking the call. By the way, Greg writing in, yes, a fine jar, and when you have a live event, that money goes to buying us drinks. Greg, I like the way you're thinking, buddy. I like the way you're thinking, but that would really be can't be just like a buck for that. Really got to really make it up.
Really pay up.
Really pay up. Like, we know not to swear, right? We go, you know, when you see a live mic.
Except that one time.
That's right. That's right. Tim, hopefully you don't have the audio.
I do not have it anymore, but it did occur.
Yeah, it did occur. that was pretty funny. We've got Thad Brown coming up here shortly, but just kind of review here, for the Sabres. And if you missed it last night, the Amerks are not a better team. They're just not after this deal. Not when you're losing a player in Isak Rosén. Rosén this year. It's crazy. 43 points in 37 games, 25 goals, leading the team, and now he is a Winnipeg Jet, and you wish him well. But the consensus is he wasn't going to be a top 6 forward right now in Buffalo. And he doesn't fit the kind of mold that would make a bottom 6 guy to throw your body around and everything else. So it's a good trade for Winnipeg, and I think it's a good start there. And you're bringing in a couple guys that really the strength of the Sabre team, let's not mistake. What happened this year? I'll tell you what happened. What changed with this team? All of a sudden the blue line started showing up and scoring. Dahlin looks like a number 1 overall pick, does he not? And Bo Byram with that trade from Colorado. And let's not forget Matthias Samuelsson. Empty netter last night. Who cares? You're doing your job. And all of a sudden, here's another number 1 overall pick. And Power last night, couple nice plays. And you have, now, if Powers continues on that path, 4 guys with offensive skill, and then, okay, you're going to need a bottom pair. You can't just trot out those guys. You don't want to, melt them into the ice here, so to speak. Okay, Jacob Bryson, yeah, you look really nice player, but in terms of gave you everything you had, but you're going to need more. He got thrown in that deal. So a couple veterans coming over. Logan Stanley, he's 27. Luke Shen, had to look it up, 36 years old. The Jets are going to pay 50% of the contract. Rosane, Jacob Bryson, 2027 second-round pick. And the Sabres, it'll be a 4th-round pick. Sabres actually had 2 in 2026. It'll be their own, the one they got from Winnipeg. Another minor deal, Sam Carrick, 10 points in 60 games this season. That's kind of it's just kind of a bottom guy there. But that's okay, as the Sabres are just going to give up a draft pick there too. So totally fine with this. Other news we can get to here, couple things from the NFL. We mentioned the Rashawn Gary thing. We have Deshaun Watson restructuring his contract with the Cleveland Browns. Where the Bills, at least, all right, we're not gonna continue to kick everything down the road. At what point do the Browns say, you know what, we just have to get rid of this contract once and for all? And they find themselves in this never-ending cycle of having to kick the can down the road with Deshaun Watson. And if you would have to say, if Deshaun Watson actually plays anything capable this preseason, he's going to have a shot to start week 1 because they're paying him all this money. $36 million in cap space is going to save the Cleveland Browns. So Deshaun Watson, and again, that's another number that's just not going to go away anytime soon for the Cleveland Browns. And Browns fans, I'm sorry on that. Geno Smith apparently is going to get released by the Raiders. That should not be a surprise, right? It's going to be Mendoza there. And I've seen some things like, ooh, there's going to be a lot of interest for Geno Smith. Really? Geno Smith should not be at the top of anybody's list. I'm sorry. A good bridge quarterback, if you're a team, I don't know, that loses out. Malik Willis is apparently number 1 in terms of free agent signings, and then maybe Kyler Murray, where all these players are going to land. And Geno Smith would pretty much be at the end of this. Syracuse basketball, too, just a quick mention. They play their final game of the regular season. Pitt is the opponent tomorrow. Syracuse 6-11 in ACC play, 15-15 overall. This will mark the 5th straight season for no NCAA tournament games for the Orange. And you could say, well, Gene, they could still run the ACC tournament. Really? Really? They haven't gotten past the quarterfinals once in this tournament. Well, this team, if they get in, what would they be, a 14 seed? No, it's not happening. So I would anticipate that in addition to, hey, here's a reshaped Sabres roster, hey, an unbelievable amount of Bills and NFL news next week, because the portal is right around the corner. In the NFL, they call it Black Monday, just all the coaches on a Monday. I don't know what day the Orange are going to wrap up their season. What, Tuesday they lose? All right, then Wednesday, do we call it? I mean, that's kind of morose, like Adrian Autry, when do you lose your job? But, look, this is kind of where we're headed, right? 866-4326.
Yeah, we've got Dr. Neil on, ready to talk Bills trade.
All right, Neil. Yeah, welcome, Neil. How are you? It's been a few weeks, Neil.
Pleasure to speak with you. I have to admit it was a little bit jarring to not have you in that drive time spot, but pleasure to speak with you as always. Thanks for taking my call.
Jarring for you, jarring for me too. But go on, Neil. How are you?
I guess we're at that point in our relationship where we can exchange phone numbers. Anyway, So I don't know what you said in the open, and if I'm being redundant, I apologize, but I'm just going to flat out say it. We got fleeced by the Chicago Bears, and I'm going to tell you why. The Chicago Bears right now are going through a youth movement. Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Caleb Williams. And this was a draft. We should have given a day 3 pick, a 4th round or a 5th round, instead of giving up a 2nd round pick for a wide receiver who is coming off the lowest receptions and yards in his career, and he's on the downside of 29. And as I have coined numerous times on this fine radio program, the pigskin gaslighting and beanwashing that is beginning to take shape already around this narrative needs to end. Because let's be fair. Did we improve our wide receiver room? Yes. But he's not a number one. At best, he's a 1.5. Okay? And yes, he had his best years with Carolina. That was several years ago. And $23.5 million cap it. And yeah, they could push it back, make it $6 or $7 million and kick the can down the road. But we've seen already that the Bills kicking the can down the road, eventually the Bills come due. And once again, Big Baller Bean, who is more like a flaccid fraud, is going to try and spin this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we settled the wide receiver problem. No, you've partially solved it. But remember this, Jalen Waddle last year, we could have had him for 2 firsts. 2 firsts for Jalen Waddle would have been value. If the rumors are true that A.J. Brown would require a first this year and a second next year or some combination thereof, that is worth it to make it for A.J. Brown. A second-round draft pick for a wide receiver that the Chicago Bears were looking to dump because of his salary and lack of production, and to get a second-round pick from Brandon Beane is I can't bleeping fleece. It is a fleece, and it once again shows that this move smacks of desperation. This is a desperate GM who threw a bunch of things at the wall and found a team that they could get something. And in closing, let me say this, and I'm just going to straight out say it. I missed you guys at the drive time from 3 to 6. You were the best at what you did. And it's a shame that the Voldemorts of sports talk radio, the talentless, sycophantic ball washers that follow you, who wouldn't know good radio if it bit them in the ass and haven't had good takes in 10 years. I'm glad I got to speak with you again, but I just want to let it be said for the public record that you two are the best at the drive time, and I will call you at this time from now into the future. But this trade, once again, classic bean washing, where it's desperation that reeks of mediocrity and settling for second best instead of being aggressive. Once again, Brandon Beane has bean washed the public. It's a pleasure to speak with you as always. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you for the kind comments and following us over to the new time slot. I'll follow it up with one thought, because yes, I think that's the reaction. The second round pick, like, oh, why'd you have to do that? How many times did Beane say go back to last year's trade deadline and talk with teams, and the teams would say, no, this is the price, and Beane would no, here's our final offer, and then you missed out on everything. And so when the Bears are negotiating, the Bills just say, hey, we're going to give you a fourth, and the Bears say, whether it's true or not, no, we've got an offer for a third, you've got to make it a second. Is there pressure knowing that you missed out on everything last fall? Maybe. Bean washing, interesting verb.
I like it.
That we can use here in the sports bar. Thad Brown from News 8 will join us next. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
So Rochester Sports Update.
So Bills news this afternoon as the team will be releasing Taron Johnson. The move will not come with the June 1st designation, so the Bills will save just $1.9 million for this year's cap. Also, the Bills will move on from wide receiver Curtis Samuel. We'll get the thoughts of Thad Brown, News 8. Thad joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Tonight, the Amerks first to 2 up in Laval. Don Stevens making one last trip to Quebec. He'll have the call tonight and tomorrow here on WGR Rochester. Isaac Rosane, by the way, no longer in Amerk, dealt away in that trade to Winnipeg. The NHL trade deadline coming up at 3 p.m. As far as trades today for Buffalo, we're still waiting. RIT playing game 1 of the best of 3. The Tigers at Holy Cross this weekend. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
So Braden Shen going to the Islanders. So if anybody thinking that St. Louis is going to send him down to be with his brother, who Jamie Shen was traded to Buffalo last night, that will not be happening as we welcome in Thad Brown, News 8, as it certainly feels like football season. And Thad, let me just kind of ask you the open-ended trade, because to me, it was like one of those, okay, that's interesting. I don't think any of us really had DJ Moore on our board as being the move, but now that you've had a day to kind of digest it, Thad, your thoughts on the move that the Bills made yesterday?
I tell you what, I definitely thought it was a potential move. He did seem like a guy that could come free, a receiver that fit the bill of what the Bills needed in terms of an outside type player, a guy who could be your lead, your number one, someone that was still young enough that it wouldn't be off the table to think he could still produce at a very high level. It was just a matter of, would the Bears want to part with him, and would Buffalo be able to make the deal? So I wasn't stunned that Moore was one of the additions, and I think it makes sense. I think it fills a lot of needs. This is a guy that can be productive at every level. He can get down the field. He can get vertical. He can be a run after the catch guy. So for everybody out there that's tired of the Joe Brady screens, you're probably not getting less of those with DJ Moore. But he's a professional. He's competent. He knows how to get open. Watching him on film yesterday from last season, the thing that sticks out is that he knows how to get to where he needs to get. And talking with some Bears fans, one of the complaints with him in the offense last year apparently was that he freelanced a little bit. And I can understand that watching the film, because he just finds the right space, and you can understand maybe that's out of structure of what Ben Johnson wants to do. So a little bit of a question there, but there was not going to be the elite immediate game changer available unless the Bills wanted to pay a king's ransom to get A.J. Brown. All the receiver options, whether free agency, trade, draft, were all going to be a little off, a little flawed, not quite exactly what you're looking for. And when you look at least the veteran options, outside of, again, of A.J. Brown, I think DJ Moore makes the most sense. He's not going to cost a ton. They'll have to take on his contract hit initially, the $24 million, but they can immediately flip that down to like $7 million. So it's not going to be onerous in that way. I am a little unnerved that they apparently want to guarantee money out to 2028. I'm not a huge fan of being on the hook for a receiver that's going to turn 30 in 13 months. But again, there was no, like I said, clean, easy, big-time solution. There was always going to be something that had some questions, some things that weren't perfect. And short of that, I think DJ Moore was a really good option for what the Bills had available to them.
Yeah, I think most people would kind of recognize, all right, that's a skill set that you would welcome in, but you mentioned the contract. And part of it, too, is maybe the way it was kind of reported, because originally when it first came out, like, mid-round pick. That makes sense. Wait, second-round pick being involved? Second-round pick. And granted, not all the picks have popped. You could point to Boogie Basham. I also would point to Cole Bishop, or I would point to James Cook. I mean, that's an asset that the Bills gave up there. I think a lot of people didn't want to give up.
No doubt they overpaid. There's no doubt. In terms of, if you want to lay out DJ Moore's value in based on his current contract, where he is in his career, and I know they got a 5th-round pick back, so it made the overall cost something probably in the neighborhood of a high 3rd-rounder. That's probably too much. But I don't try and get too wrapped up in this kind of analysis of whether it was a deal that worked, because when it's December and January and it's 3rd and 7, if DJ Moore makes a play, ain't nobody going to care. So that's what needs to happen. And as long as Moore produces at a commensurate, reasonable number one type receiver level, he's not going to be elite probably, but this is a guy that I think you can count on, or you should be able to count on to catch 75, 80 balls, then people aren't going to worry about the second-round pick. The other thing, too, this year, if you want to think about getting a receiver in the draft, there's not a whole lot of drop-off from round 1 to round 2 to round 3. So the fact the Bills don't have that pick anymore, they can still go get a receiver that might be just as good as anyone in round 3, that might have been just as good as anyone they get in round 2. So I think the other thing part of it, and again, because there's no great option, you probably got to overpay a little bit. You got to make sure you get what you want. There were rumors about other teams being involved. There might have been a bidding war. So, yeah, it wasn't – the Bills did not win the deal. But again, if DJ Moore does what he's supposed to do, no one will mind in December and January.
I also think I buy into the theory that Brandon Beane, the market's already set. These GMs know what the price tag is going to be for Alec Pierce or Mike Evans or any other wide receiver. And I believe that maybe when we hear those contracts, we're going to be like, really? Really? That's going to be – it might make DJ Moore's money look like a bargain in that regard.
I totally agree, and I'd rather have DJ Moore. Again, other than A.J. Brown, I think DJ Moore is the best veteran option the Bills could have landed on. When you include everything, what it would cost in draft compensation, what it can include in terms of a contract. And, yeah, while the Pierces and the Mike Evans of the world might be more expensive, but they don't cost anything in draft capital. I get all that. I still would rather have DJ Moore. This is the guy that I think has the highest floor and still has a reasonably high number one ceiling. This is a guy that 2 years ago and 3 years ago damn near caught 100 balls. So taking a bet on that at age 29, when I still think there's a good chunk of prime left there, I think is a very reasonable bet with what the Bills did.
Yeah, and look, if he's a 1A, and again, I don't know if Shakir you can call that, but in your receiving core, it seems like there still is a hole, Thad. And in the news today, the team moving on for Curtis Samuel, that is not a surprise here. I mean, what would you put the odds or the chances that, all right, the Bills are going to get somebody here in free agency that will actually be a clear guy that will be in this top 5 here to be on the opening day roster?
I would say not likely in free agency, but certainly not impossible. I don't think, for example, I think Romeo Dobbs, Rashid Shaheed, that class of guy, I think that's off the table now. They've kind of spent their veteran level spend on receiver. I mean, that stat came out the other day. The Bills are spending the second most in the league at receiver. Now that's different with Curtis Samuel off the books now. But regardless, they have a significant amount of resources financially at receiver. So I don't think they go that route. It wouldn't stun me if they went something way down in terms of like a lower level, just a guy type player. But I think the next big asset used on receiver will be in the draft. I think either the first or the third, maybe even the 4th round pick. I think they use one of those first 3 selections to add another receiver in the draft. And I think that's the way they need to go. Because like you said, this is not a receiver core or a pass catching core that I would look at and say, we're fine, we're good. They can certainly still get better. So I think there will be more assets. Again, free agency to me is not off the table. But if I was laying a bet, I'd bet on a higher draft pick before a bigger free agent spend.
Thad Brown, Sports Director, News 8, joining us here. As Thad, before we get to, all right, what could happen on Monday, and we're all anticipating the defensive side of the ball, just your thoughts here on Taron Johnson, because I hate how some of these times end for these athletes, and I get it. I mean, he's 30, not a great year for Taron Johnson. I'm a little surprised, though, they didn't designate this apparently as a June 1st cut because the cap savings this year aren't going to be all that great.
I don't think this move is necessarily about cap savings. I mean, they do need to get under the cap, and there are a number of moves they probably still need to make, again, to take on that DJ Moore contract initially. I think this is more about, like you said, this was a player that showed some decline last year, even though I still think he was pretty good. This is still a upper-end nickel cornerback in the NFL. And it's also about the defense they're going to. When you play the 3-4, you're not using your nickel as much. So it's not as much of a priority, in terms of what you want to spend on it, percentage of cap-wise. Taron Johnson was, to me, one of the better stand-up guys I've covered. I remember a number of games. There was the Giants home game where I think he defends the Darren Waller play at the end, and he's the hero. And then a couple weeks later, they go into New England, and he gives up the tight end touchdown at the very end of the game, and he's the GOAT. And both times, Taron Johnson right there in the locker room, taking questions from media, not, being respectful, answering what everybody had to say. He was always the kind of guy that you'd go to and talk to. One of the better dispositions in the locker room. And at his prime, one of my favorite guys to watch on film. For the size that he played at, the quality of run defense and his willingness to throw his body in and make tackles, on top of the fact he was a pretty good cover guy, makes him one of the better nickels I've ever been around and covered with the Buffalo Bills. And he'll be missed in the locker room, but I totally understand what the Bills are doing, whether it's cap-wise or just with the direction of the defense, that just Taron Johnson didn't fit anymore. And it is unfortunate that it's, kind of a one-line transaction among a flurry of them on a random Friday in March. That's the dismissal for Taron Johnson.
Yeah, and I hope he lands somewhere and continues his career and just see if he can get some more mileage out of his NFL career. Thad Brown, our guest here. Coming up now Monday is, all right, legal tampering, whatever they want to call it. I mean, these deals are already the wheels are already in motion here, Thad. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball, because there are all these jobs that might be available. Heck, I don't even know if they're going to bring back a guy like who was really nice last year in Tre'Davious White. Your thoughts on what are the possibilities here, what the Bills could do in terms of their free agent dollars on the defense?
I think edge rushers got to be a priority with the way they're going to build the 3-4. They really don't have those quicker, twitchier guys to rush off the edge. And their edges have been Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa, kind of your old school power 4-3 guys. And when you look at the current roster, Dorian Williams and Matt Milano, who's a free agent, technically not on the roster, are the guys who best fit there. And they're not the kind of guys you want as your lead outside linebackers in this defense. So there's a number, Arnold Paquette, Joe Asai are guys who are available. I would not dismiss the idea of the Bills going big after Jalen Phillips. I think Jalen Phillips would be a huge add for this team. I don't know how much interest they had. I don't know if he quite fits the 3-4 mold, but that guy has always been someone that's been a favorite of mine. He certainly has the athletic profile to make it work. So that's someone that I kind of have in the back of my mind as the Bills hit free agency here. And then you brought up Trey White, too. I'm very interested to see how they approach that because, yeah, Max Harrison was a first-round pick, but we didn't see anywhere near enough to think that guy is someone you can count on going into year two. Now, he had a similar deal in his rookie season as Cole Bishop did, and Cole Bishop certainly worked out okay. So I can understand if the Bills want to kind of roll with Max as the de facto starter. But again, we haven't seen it. So do you bring Trey back, a guy who at the end of last year really proved he can still play in this league, but now it's in a different defense. So he's kind of learning where everybody else is. He kind of I think one of the things that helps with those guys is having the experience, having the familiarity. That goes away. Is maybe Trey White now less valuable? And then if you don't want Trey White, who do you bring in? Are you bringing in a guy that could really obviously be a week one starter, or are you bringing in someone that looks more like depth only if Max works out? So it's not going to wildly change the fortunes of the Bills in 2026, but I am interested a lot to see what they do at corner with Trey White being a free agent right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions that we'll start to learn the answers to. I got another question for you, because if this is going to be, and I don't know, like, is it a 3-4? Is it going to kind of morph from between this and that? How does Ed Oliver fit in this? I mean, I don't recall Ed Oliver playing a lot of the end position here. Like, I would think that Deion Walker's your guy in the middle here of this revamped defensive line.
Yeah, I think Ed Oliver's talented enough that they'll find a spot for him. He did play some one technique, which would be as close as you get to a nose tackle in the Bills 4-3 and can be functional there. I think he's talented enough that you'll find a spot for him. Is this defense the best for him? Maybe not, but I think he's still going to be someone that you can easily use. I mean, I do like the idea of them rolling out Deion Walker, Greg Rousseau, and Ed Oliver as your three in the 3-4, and then if you had a Jalen Phillips on the outside of that starts to get pretty fun on passing down. So there will be options for Ed Oliver, but that's not a question for March. That's a question for July and August about how Ed Oliver fits. But I just think that guy is too talented to not find some way to be effective in this defense.
Yeah, there are some questions on the other side of the ball that aren't wide receiver related. Let me start with this. Thad, who is the starting center for this team week one?
I want to lean Alec Anderson right now. I know people have talked about Cedric Van Pran Granger. It could easily be him because he is the more prototypical center. I think Anderson, though, being the guy they've gone to when Connor McGovern was out the last couple years, speaks volumes. Either way, it does feel like that they are leaning a little more towards going with the younger, cheaper in-house option. Now, there was reporting that Tim Graham from The Athletic did that Connor McGovern and the Bills had not talked up until a couple days ago. Well, then Josh Reed, my colleague over at WIVB in Buffalo, he reported that there had been talks. So it wouldn't stun me if the Bills are going to let Connor McGovern kind of set his market and then have him come back to the team and say, this is what I'm going to get, this is what you guys got to pay me, and go from there. I do think between McGovern and David Edwards, McGovern is the guy more likely to take a team-friendly deal. The Bills were the team that gave him the opportunity at center, his preferred position. I think he really likes the organization, like many guys do. So it wouldn't stun me if he came back at all. And when you ask like who the center is going to be, I'm like 35% Alec Anderson, 27% Connor McGovern, and then like 38% the field. So. We'll see over the next few days for sure.
Yeah, in fact, one more for you as we're talking, me and our producer Tim, we're just looking at the wire here, and we haven't seen anything about a Sabre trade, and all these rumors today coming from the NHL Info guys surrounding Devin Levi, and I get Isak Rosén why the Sabres moved on from him, but if you move on from Devin Levi, then I don't think you're getting beyond the first round of this year's Calder Cup playoffs here.
Well, the Amerks are in rough shape to begin with. This was already a team that has plenty of defensive issues. I mean, if you watch their games night after night, Devin Levi's not having a good year, and it's hard for me to look at a lot of spots where it's his fault. He's getting hung out to dry. I mean, the game they lost 9-3 to Laval, there was a goal where essentially an Amerks defenseman assisted on it. It's been that bad defensively. Their hope for the postseason this year was going to be Rosén and Helenius and Zach Jones in defense and Guy Metz if he comes back down, outscoring teams day after day, and then Devin Levi having a couple stand on his head games and stealing. And when you take Rosén off of that, you're already in a spot where it feels hard to come up with a reasonable path for the Amerks to have success. Levi would just sink the whole thing. I mean, they haven't had much with anybody backup goalie-wise this year. Scott Ratcliffe has been up and down from the ECHL. So the Amerks, this is clearly going to be a Sabres year when it comes to postseason hockey at this point. And Levi would give the Amerks a shot, but if I'm the Sabres, I'm certainly not holding on to Devin Levi. Their approach, it seems to be all in, and I understand it. I respect it. The Amerks, at the end of the day, are here to essentially make the Sabres better. And if making the Sabres better this year is gutting the team for the postseason, then that's a method that I can understand.
Thad, I would imagine you and your staff are going to be pretty busy, not only Sabre trade deadline and following whatever the Bills do here, but tell us about the coverage. The big weekend at the Blue Cross for sectionals. What can we check out tonight on News 8?
Yeah, all weekend long, we will be covering the high school basketball. We'll have it at Rochester First on our website, News 8 at 11. Round Ball Roundup will be Saturday, not Friday. We'll have, I think there's 13 games, 12 games actually tomorrow. We're going to have highlights from, I think, 11 of them, so a ton of high school basketball. And then next week, when it comes to the opening of free agency, please check out our streaming channel, Rochester First. You can download it for free on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. BKL Nightly's on Monday and Thursday, and if anything really big happens, we'll do more shows for sure. But that's on every Monday and Thursday, 8:30, and you can watch it on demand. We did a whole half hour yesterday talking all about DJ Moore, so people can download that channel and watch it right now. And we'll have all kinds of coverage all off season long. That show is on twice a week in season, twice a week now out of season, and then 5 days a week once we get back into season when camp starts.
Great stuff, Thad. Appreciate the time. Let's do this again soon. Thanks so much, buddy.
Sounds good, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Thad Brown, News 8. We'll have one final segment coming up next. This is Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you here today on WGR Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
Something weird is happening right now in the NFL. A lot of things weird. Welcome back here. Final minutes here of the show here before we high step it to the weekend. This out of Green Bay where Rashawn Gary puts this out there, and it's his goodbye. Green Bay, when I got the call in 2019, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, blah, 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 blah. On to my next step, nowhere near done yet. I'm like, whoa, okay. And then you, as a Bills fan, start to imagine, whoa, that would be a really good guy as a pass rusher. Yeah. That post has been deleted. So, wait a second. I didn't know that teams have embargo on this stuff. But a player has every right to tell the world, hey, I'm going to be a free agent. So what really happened here? Did Rashawn Gary get misinformation? Did the Packers say, yeah, no, we were just kind of kidding? I want to know, why did this get deleted? You don't know the Packers are saying you're being released. You owe them nothing. You want to say goodbye to the fans and also let people know that you want to be gainfully employed. You have every right to do that. Unless it's really an odd situation that did your agent tell you something wrong? Did you jump the gun on? Is this something you didn't have 100% confirmation that was actually going to happen? I don't know. So it's just one of those, okay, that kind of strikes me as just being a little bit odd. Good luck to the RIT Tigers tonight as, look, they lost 2 out in Holy Cross. I'm not going to count Matt Thomas's team out. This is an Atlantic hockey that I've seen all the teams. 1 through 10. Wouldn't surprise me all. We get back to Monday and the Tigers are still alive and getting ready to go to the semifinals at Bentley. So good luck to them. And, Celtic fans, you got something to look forward to with Tatum coming back in the lineup tonight. Apparently that's going to happen. Good for ESPN. They're going to get this as the Celtics will host Dallas. As that will also have the Knicks tonight. But you look at the standings in the NBA. I mean, the Celtics right now are in second place of the Eastern Conference. If Detroit is not mature enough, I don't know if the Knicks have what it takes. But, man, wouldn't that be something if in a down year the Celtics ended up being the team? Miss any today's show, you can go back and listen to the Rewind feature anytime, 72 hours. The Odyssey app is the place to go. For Tim Schneider, my name is Gene Battaglia. Have a great weekend. Shope and the Bulldog are up next here on WGR Rochester.
So much action.